people are really... I mean, they've been feeling this price increase for some time now, but it's spiralled, hasn't it, in recent days even, and it's likely to go up even further.
Yeah, that's right, Claire. I mean, we were already dealing with inflation in the economy before the crisis in Ukraine erupted. For January, inflation was at 5%, and we were really seeing that in our energy bills mostly. People probably would have got their first big energy bills in the last month or so, where gas prices, electricity prices were very high. Oil prices had been creeping back up again as the economy was reopening, but over the last week we've seen a real spike in both oil and gas again, and that's, I suppose, financial markets trying to figure out whatever is happening in Ukraine, what that means for global financial markets, be it oil markets, gas markets, because Russia is such a big player in a lot of these key commodities like oil, gas, and food as well, and some of those staples. So those are the areas where I think consumers are going to increasingly see this hitting their pockets, the fallout, economic fallout of what's happening in Ukraine. Yeah,
and yet we're hearing, Willie O'Dea, that there's no government action yet on it.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that because, you know, when the initial government action was taken, the €200 supplement, etc. I predicted at the time, in fact I predicted in the Dáil, that the government would have to return to this matter again before the budget. Now that was before Ukraine.
I mean, so obviously I'm wondering why you're surprised this has happened, because we've had Pascal Donoghue, who's been on the show here, saying, look, we're not in a position to change VAT, excise, we're not doing those things, and the cost of living measures, that the suite of measures that are in place will have to do. So there has been no move on it as yet.
Well, I'm surprised. Well, to answer your question directly, I'm surprised because I read in the newspaper, a newspaper of record today, that Leo Varadkar had undertaken that there would be.
That's what the white paper.
There would be.
There would be. Well, he said he would undertake
no.
When the white paper comes back from the EU.
He said that. Yeah, he said that action would be taken
in
advance of the budget. In my view, look,
in advance of the budget.
My opinion. Look, I understand that. My opinion is.
No, I'm talking about this week. I mean, the suggestion is that nothing will be done this week.
This week. Yes, of course. Look, I hear what you're saying.
We're already behind the curve on this. I mean,
we are. I know that.
Many of the countries have already, for instance,
I'm not arguing with you. I've seen a list of the countries. I've seen a list of the countries that have reduced VAT. I don't need it. I've seen it.
Absolutely.
Verona, your take on this?
Well, I think that's the point. We are behind the curve and we really need to be ahead of it. We are seeing many operators, bus and truck operators, who are parked up because they are losing money. They are about to go bust. I think that was relayed to Minister Donoghue today. He was very non-committal, very disappointing for the haulage sector, but also I called on them on Friday. I've sent them many texts in the last number of weeks informing them of what other European countries are doing. They're price freezing. They're removing excise duties. Like, we have an excise duty, Claire, that encompasses VAT, it encompasses an ORA charge, a biofuel charge. You know, we have to add blue to the factor of the commercial diesel, which is €1 a litre.
There's plenty of costs.
But the reality is that we are going to see families who won't be able to afford to actually drive to work very soon. If this goes, we're currently at €2 a litre in most of the country. €1 of that is government taxes. Now, today the Taoiseach said a number of times we're in unprecedented times and we must take unprecedented measures.
But we're still waiting to hear about the measures.
This needs to be an emergency measure.
Niall Boylan on that.
Well, as Verona rightly said, Hungary have already taken steps, for example, to cap it at 131. I think they've extended that to May. But I spotted an interesting piece today that
would be us pulling it back from what it is now, sort of skirting on €2 a litre.
There's no reason why we can't reduce. There's no reason why we can't take a temporary measure. But there was an interesting piece today that back in 2008...
Do you believe the politicians when they say they'll take action on this?
No, but they should. But I don't believe they will. And Micheál Martin already said 2 weeks ago that nothing was going to happen between now and the budget, although Leo Varadkar today seems to contradict him by suggesting something will happen before the budget as soon as he gets an EU white paper so we can all work in unison together, which is... I mean, I thought we wanted to be the first to do everything. When COVID came along, we could bring in laws overnight. But I just want to make a very important point. In 2008, it was $143 for a barrel of Brent crude oil. Right? Now, here we are, and the price at the pump was $125. It's now $131 today, yet the price is €2. Now, a lot of that has to do with the dollar exchange back in 2008, but it's also in those days, of course, green taxes were just a glint in Gormley's eye. So, I mean, not only that, we have green taxes, we have excise duty, which actually increased since then as well. And obviously the VAT rate has increased because the VAT is taken on the total cost. So basically 120, as rightly pointed out, it's actually more. It's 120 of this is actually the government's money. They could easily reduce it, they could easily cap it, they could do it from midnight tonight if there really was, if there was actually some sort of...
I think, McCarthy, on that, I mean, what we've always heard from government is that these are Europe-wide decisions. You know, we row in with those decisions. So essentially, we have to wait for that to be rubber stamped before we can do it here.
No, that's in relation to VAT, but as has been said, the government could take an initiative tomorrow in relation to excise duty, and they haven't. And the last time I was on this show, we were talking about a cost of living crisis. For many families that I'm talking about, that is now a cost of living emergency, because we have to remember that in this country, as well as what are now crippling costs in relation to motor fuel, home heating costs, electricity costs, we also have the exorbitant rents that families are paying, the childcare costs that families are paying, all of those additional costs that costs on basically living that are imposed on workers and families. And here's a chance, but this is important, because this is a chance for the first time since this government took power to say we actually understand the lives that those who we represent are actually living. And a simple measure would be in relation to excise duty, and they need to do it this way.
Politicians are disconnected from the general public because they don't have to worry about putting €50 in their car every day. They don't have to worry about that.
Do you have to worry about that, Willie?
Do
you have to worry about putting money in the car to get from A to B?
What do you know about me?
Well, you're on expenses, Willie. Let's be honest. Be honest with people. You get expenses, so you don't have to worry about it.
I was always honest with people. I'm sorry, I can't always say the same to you.
I had a self-employed man today on the air with me, and he has his own bread van. He reckons he's going to be out of business very short because he can't afford to put
How many people do you think I talked to the last 48 hours are going to be out of business?
I'm not trying to insult you, but what I'm saying is politicians in general are disconnected from the people.
Well, I'm not disconnected. I've been elected for 40 years. I have not disconnected.
I believe they're disconnected when it comes to things like that.
Unless you think the people of Limerick are fools.
No, because when you come in...
I am not disconnected.
I want to bring you back in.
Just to add to one point at Matt, the government now are able, as a result of a recent decision by the European Commission, to reduce VAT at any time on energy.
You'd expect to see something happen tomorrow.
I would expect. I would do it immediately if I were in the position, but I'm only a backbencher.